This is the BYD Dolphin Surf, South Africa's most affordable electric vehicle. Let's take a look around. BYD has taken the South African market by storm in the past 12 months with the launch of the BYD Seal, the BYD Dolphin, the BYD Shark, and the BYD Sea Line 7 and the Sea Line 6. And now we have the BYD Dolphin Surf, the most affordable electric vehicle in South Africa by far. It is now 70,000 Rand cheaper than the previous benchmark set at 400,000 Rand. At 329,000 Rand after the 10,000 Rand rebate, this is now the most affordable hatchback electric vehicle in the country. The Dolphin Surf comes in two variants, the Comfort and the Dynamic, with this particular version being the Comfort. Both models come in a 55 kilowatt version with a front wheel drive permanent magnet synchronous motor, pushing out 55 kilowatts of power and 130 Newton meters of torque. That specification allows the Surf to reach a top speed of 130 kilometers an hour, or actually up to 135 kilometers an hour in sport mode, allowing ample overtaking capability on South African highways. The difference between the Comfort and the Dynamic are mostly in the battery capacity and the DC charging speeds, amongst a few other features. The Comfort offers a battery capacity of 30.1 kilowatt hours with a WLTP range of 232 kilometers, whereas the Dynamic has a battery capacity of 38.9 kilowatt hours and has a WLTP range of up to 295 kilometers. Both models have an AC charge speed of 6.6 kilowatts, whereas the Comfort comes with a DC charge speed of 30 kilowatts and the Dynamic a DC charge speed of 40 kilowatts. But the Comfort comes with many of the same features as the Dynamic. There are too many to list out. You can find all the specifications online, but some cool features that this type of hatchback has, which no other hatchback has in its class, is a feature like vehicle to load, which allows this car to actually power AC appliances directly from the charging port. So other features that the Dynamic has that the Comfort doesn't have are things like power adjustment of the seats, extra airbags for the driver and front seat, although both vehicles come with side curtain airbags. There's a telescopic setting for the steering wheel that the Comfort doesn't have but that the Dynamic has. Then there's things like the wireless charging for mobile phones that comes with the Dynamic but not with the Comfort. But beyond those features, everything else is the same between the vehicles. So for the price difference of an extra 50,000 Rand, those are the additional features that you will get. So it's super exciting now to see the BYD Dolphin Surf eventually come to South African shores, offering consumers a really competitive electric vehicle at the price point that it offers. If you are now potentially looking at a new hatchback in the 300 to 350,000 Rand range, you have a very compelling offer in the electric vehicle segment to look at. The BYD Dolphin Surf also comes with a home charger that you can plug into a 3-prong plug overnight, and overnight add around 20 kilowatt hours into this battery. That 20 kilowatt hours added to a battery in a vehicle of this size easily gives you around about 150 to 170 kilometers of range. And if you consider that you really only need to charge this overnight every 3 or 4 days, you will have a home charging solution that could be significantly cheaper than actually using petrol to power a vehicle of this class. So let me take it out for a quick drive test and let you know how the actual handling feels and the acceleration. See you on the road. How does it handle for a hatchback entry electric vehicle in South Africa? Well, I've been really excited about this because I think this is the vehicle that South Africa really needs for a mass adoption of EVs to really start taking off. It has to be affordable, and I think BYD have really nailed the price point with this vehicle in terms of its feature set and what it offers, and finally bringing electric vehicle driving to the South African consumer. So far, I mean, this car is really smooth off the line, very quiet. I can really say that the cabin noise is exceptionally low, and you can just sense that it's a pure electric drive. The two screens here, the driver's display area and the user information entertainment or infotainment screen are quite clear. This screen on the left, the user entertainment screen, is a higher resolution than the driver's cluster. So you have various drive modes in the Surf. You can move between normal mode, eco mode and sport mode. I think everyday driving, normal mode will be more than sufficient. But if you really want to have a little bit more of that EV experience, you really need to be driving it in sport mode. It just gives that little bit more responsiveness in terms of the accelerator feel. When you depress the accelerator, you really feel that little bit of punch that you expect from an EV. And secondly, if you put the steering into sport mode as well, you do get more responsiveness in terms of the handling. So a couple of settings that you can tweak, which really are not going to compromise you too much in terms of consumption, I would say, but give you that extra driver experience that you really would like to have with an EV. The other thing that BYD does offer is various responsiveness modes for one pedal drive. You have high feedback, low feedback, and it displays that in your driver cluster. If you let go of the accelerator, you definitely can feel the regenerative braking kicking in. It's not as aggressive as I've felt in other EVs, but it definitely is there. And certainly if you let it ride out, the car will come to a complete stop. For me, when it comes to one pedal drive, it's an absolutely fantastic feature for, let's say, everyday urban driving, stop-start traffic. However, when you do get onto the highway and you are cruising at a sort of cruising speed, you would probably turn off one pedal drive, because otherwise you find that you are fighting against the one pedal drive just to maintain a constant speed. All right, I'm just going to do a acceleration test off the line just to get a sense of how fast, what's the power like with this. So I'm in sport mode and it's safe to accelerate. So on the count of three, let's go. 3, 2, 1, and off we go. Foot is flat. And we're up to 70, 80, 90, and a little bit of a pull up to 100. So not the fastest, however, not very slow in terms of this type of hatchback vehicle class. There's definitely some power there, but it's not going to break any records, let's say. Consumption-wise, the Dolphin Surf is one of the most economical EVs, I think, on the market right now, just given the size and the weight of the vehicle. I mean, driving for the past 44 kilometers, the average consumption that I've got is 10.5 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks. If you take that 10.5 kilowatt hours as a consumption, multiply it through your 30.1 kilowatt hour battery in the Comfort, you are close to 300 kilometers of range in this Comfort. So you certainly can get exceptional range out of even the Dolphin Comfort. Really nice feature, rear view camera on the Comfort standard. As you would expect with an EV, this is the kind of feature that's become default by now. Let's test how the handling works. So let's take a few corners here. Actually very, very good. McPherson struts on the front axle and a torsion beam on the rear axle really gives this car a super feel for its class. Definitely got some cornering ability, able to take these corners nicely and smoothly, and I think would be a super drive on a daily basis to have a vehicle like this. Going to test now the responsiveness off the line. Here we go. Actually, this is really fun to drive. Super quiet at these speeds as well, and great responsiveness. Just waved at a Sykes Maxus Woolworths electric van, as you do when you're an EV driver. Okay, I'm just pulling into a DC charger at the moment. We're going to do a DC charge test now with the Dolphin Surf Comfort. Charge test. Time to do a DC charge test. I'm here at the midstream 60 kilowatt DC charger, about to plug in the Dolphin Surf. Remember, this is the Comfort, so the maximum DC charge speed is going to be 30 kilowatts. But let's have a look exactly what it is. Okay, so the DC charge session is underway. It's charging at 30.1 kilowatts. And while it's doing it, let's just do some of the maths behind this. If you think about the battery capacity of the Dolphin Surf, it's 30.1 kilowatt hours. The maximum DC charge speed that it offers is 30 kilowatts. So hypothetically, in 1 hour, you should be able to load 30 kilowatt hours of energy into the battery. But now what actually happens in real life is that it will average a bit less than that. So it won't be an exact hour to get this from 0% to 100%. It's just the way that the battery management systems work. But if you are charging the battery between, say, 20% and 80%, so that's a good 60% of that 30 kilowatt hours, you can get potentially around 18 kilowatt hours into the battery in a 30-minute cycle of charging. That 18 kilowatt hours gives you a net distance of probably around 160 to 170 kilometers, given the consumption of this vehicle being quite low at around 11 to 12 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks. So as a practical car in urban environments, if you were to do DC charging on this thing and only ever stop for 30 minutes at a time, you could easily get that 170 or so kilometers of range in those charging cycles. So even a road trip could be feasible in a Dolphin Surf if you're prepared just to accommodate that 30-minute charge cycle to give you that next 170 kilometers of range at a time. However, again, if you're able to do AC charging with this vehicle, either at the workplace or at home or at a shopping center while you're spending a bit of time there, you can really get away with only having to charge this car probably once every 3 to 4 days. And that 300 kilometers of range, or in this case, maybe the 230 kilometers of range, becomes really, really practical. Just going to do an AC charging test with the BYD Dolphin Surf. I won't be here long, but just want to try and do a test. So here we go. Okay, no problems with the AC charge test. Charging now at 6.0 kilowatts, so exactly according to the spec. If I were to stay here, it would be 100% charged within 3 hours and 39 minutes. Everything going according to plan, and this is exactly how you'd expect it to work. Going to go through a few of the interior features and buttons just so you get an idea of what you could experience when you're inside the vehicle. So you effectively have a rocker switch here, or a rolling switch here, for your volume. You also have access to window defrosting and aircon on and off, your hazards button, auto hold, and your mode button. And this effectively is your gear shift. So drive down, reverse up, and parking down the side. But as you can see, the screen's actually off, so you could power it on by pressing the on button, and then you get presented with the first set of settings screens. However, your normal home screen can be set with a bit of a wallpaper, and you've got access to some widgets here at the bottom. So your current tire pressures, and then your media and connectivity, and your current radio stations, and so on, and a few indicators here at the top left as to whether the vehicle is connected via cellular data, if your Bluetooth is connected, your GPS is working, and a clock. So that's your basic home screen. There's no real scrolling on this. And in this particular model, the screen does not rotate, which is normally the case with BYD. But if you jump into the left, you get presented with some applications. You have also some folders with some extra utilities. You even have a YouTube player. It needs to be connected to Wi-Fi. And you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto available if you've connected that up. So that's your basic application screen. If you go then really to the next useful screen, it's your settings screen. And here you have control over your lights, interior and exterior. You can set that up, various ways that you want the locking and unlocking to work, and whether you want to display the units of range remaining, either in dynamic, which uses your previous driving behavior, or in standard in terms of WLTP range left. Energy is probably interesting here. You get a nice graph in terms of what your consumption and your recharge was. It gives you a reading here, basically a historical reading over the past 50 kilometers. This is 10.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And then you have a sort of overall reading here, 12.3 kilowatt hours over the lifetime of your odometer. And you can reset as well per trip. Charging and discharging, you can choose a bit of a schedule in terms of smart charging if you need to do that. Otherwise, you can then go back to charging port enabling or disabling. And then you've got some control over what is the maximum current limit that you actually want the vehicle to charge at. What's useful about that is that you can limit the vehicle's current charging based on, for example, the amount of solar production that you're currently producing at home if you happen to be charging off solar. Energy manager, really the only setting here is your level of regenerative braking. It's either standard or it's high. I like to keep it on high. Vehicle settings, starting with comfort driving, in terms of how you power the car on and off, driving control, various settings there. Keeping it in sport mode gives it a bit more responsiveness, so definitely recommend doing that. That's basically the main menu on this screen. On your driver's display screen, a little bit lower resolution, but no less functional. So you can effectively cycle through a few screens here in terms of your current trip or your cumulative average energy consumption. You can look at tire pressures, you can look at driving times, you can look at average speed and so on. So just your basics in terms of trip data. On the left-hand side, this is really your settings for automatic cruise control and popping it up and down to set it. You've got a favorites button here. On the right-hand side, you effectively have a number of buttons here for your media control. And on the right-hand side, just this little button here is effectively your trip meter change. So trip A, trip B, and your odometer. Just one additional feature which is really useful, of course, is your Apple CarPlay. Very nice implementation, very clear screen again, nice resolution, and very responsive as well. So I'm driving the Dolphin Surf at the moment, and I've just reached 100 kilometers on this particular charge. And I just wanted to show you, because even with 100 kilometers of range already done, it's basically telling me there's still about 135 to 138 kilometers left in the actual charge range. So what does that mean? It means that we're actually over the WLTP spec in terms of the range at the moment. So it basically means with reasonable driving behavior and urban commuting, stop-start traffic in cities and so on, you can actually achieve a range which is higher than the rated spec. And here's the other interesting fact. This has all been in sport mode. So get the extra dynamic handling from sport mode and make the most of it, because it really doesn't impact your consumption or your range too much. Okay, so I'm using cruise control right now on the Dolphin Surf. And when you set the button to actually activate cruise control, you then need to use the rocker switch to actually set the speed that you want to set at. However, it doesn't actually reflect the speed that you've set at. Instead, you just get a kind of indication of the speed that you're currently going at. In other words, as you go up and down on the automatic cruise control, it just basically dynamically changes that on your actual speedometer, as opposed to targeting a set level which is visible. So it's something just to keep in mind that you need to be aware of. So let me sum up my final impressions of the BYD Dolphin Surf. It's the perfect trainer EV for you to take a low-risk chance on getting into the e-mobility lifestyle. It offers everything that you need in terms of the comfort and the electric vehicle experience, and overall provides huge value in terms of total cost of ownership. In terms of the two models available, this one being the Comfort, I found it super fun to drive. The pro tip is to always keep this vehicle in sport mode to get the best responsiveness, the best acceleration, and the best overtaking. It's not really that much of a gain to keep it in comfort mode or normal mode as opposed to sport mode. Sport doesn't really take any further consumption. It just gives you more handling and better driving experience. So I definitely recommend driving the Dolphin Surf in sport mode. What's also nice about the Dolphin Surf is that it comes with a digital key. If you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you can set up your digital key within your device to unlock and lock the vehicle. In terms of actually getting this activated, from what I've learned, it's really important that you work with your dealer and that your dealer actually adds your email profile onto the back-end BYD data systems so that you can get pushed an OTA update that will take you through the wizard and the activation of your digital key. However, once you've done that digital key activation, it really is a nice convenience feature to also have with your BYD. I drove the vehicle for 356 kilometers over the past couple of days at an average consumption of 12.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That translates to 8.3 kilometers per kilowatt hour, and in total that means I used 43 kilowatt hours for those 356 kilometers. If you multiply that through by the average Eskom rate of 3 Rand per kilowatt hour, the total cost of that distance is 129 Rand. So the final calculation there is 129 Rand divided by 356 kilometers, translating to a cost per kilometer for the BYD Dolphin Surf of just 36 cents, which is by far the most cost-effective figure that I've seen in an EV to date. So super economical and really can make a huge impact on your total cost of ownership. So in summary, really great package, really great driving experience, super economical. It's going to be an impressive vehicle to see in terms of sales numbers. I'm sure BYD is going to be selling a lot of surfs into the SA market, and I think that'll bring a huge jump in e-mobility uptake and electric vehicle awareness in South Africa. Hopefully this was useful. If you enjoyed it, please watch out for the next one, and I'll see you then.